Sam Junkin was raised in Battle Creek, Michigan, and it was here where he met Clayton J. Bruckner, a lifelong associate with whom Clayton shared a love of aviation. Junkin acquired his Sam nickname during high school. After graduating from high school in 1915, the pair became involved with the O. E. Williams Aeroplane Company and Flying School in Fenton, Michigan, where Junkin learned aviator and mechanical aspects of airplanes. In 1917, Junkin and Bruckner met George E. Buck Weaver. In 1920, they established a formal company named Weaver Aircraft Company, WACO. The first airplane built was a high-wing parasol named the Cootie. In 1921, Weaver Aircraft Company built its first practical airplane, the WACO Model 4. In 1922, Weaver left the Weaver Aircraft Company, and in 1923, the Weaver Aircraft Company closed its doors, moved to Troy, Ohio, and reorganized as the Advanced Aircraft Company. In 1925, WACO planes were utilized for the first annual Commercial Airplane Reliability Tour for the Ford Touring Trophy. On June 21, 1925, Junkin married Hattie Weaver, Buck Weaver's widow. Early in 1926, Junkin was seriously ill from a heart condition. His death on November 1, 1926, was caused by effects from childhood rheumatic fever. Mr. Junkin, in connection with his partners, were credited with truly notable achievement in the successful solution of the most difficult engineering problems of aircraft construction. It was confidently expected among experienced men that Mr. Junkin and his associates would become to the aircraft world what Ford had become to the automobile world in the production of an airplane. Walker Bud Mahurin was born on December 5, 1918, in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Bud moved to Ann Arbor for a short time and was then adopted by a family from Fort Wayne. After high school, Bud studied engineering at Purdue University, only attending intermittently due to financial constraints. He entered a civilian pilot training program and earned his license in 1939. Bud enlisted in the Army Air Force Aviation Cadet Program in September 1941 and was commissioned a second lieutenant and awarded his wings in April 1942. He was assigned to the 63rd Fighter Squadron, 56th Fighter Group, the Wolfpack, flying the P-47 Thunderbolt, and deployed to England in January 1943. Newly promoted, Captain Mahurin became a flight leader and began flying combat missions in May. On August 17, 1943, Mahurin scored his first 2 aerial victories and became an ace on October 4th when he shot down 3 more German aircraft. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for that engagement. On November 26, 1943, Mahurin shot down 3 more German aircraft in one mission and became the first American pilot in the European theater to score 10 aerial victories, a double ace. He was awarded the Silver Star for this engagement. Promoted to major in March 1944 and now a triple ace, his P-47 was heavily damaged by a German bomber he helped shoot down, and he was forced to bail out. Picked up by the French resistance, he was able to return to England 2 months later. He was banned from any further combat missions in Europe because of his knowledge of the French resistance. In October 1944, Mahurin was sent to the Pacific Theater as commander of the 3rd Fighter Squadron operating in the Philippines. Flying the P-51 Mustang, he became the unit's first pilot to down a Japanese aircraft and ended the war with 20 3/4 aerial victories. Promoted to lieutenant colonel, Bud also has the unique distinction of being forced to bail out in both theaters. When the Korean War erupted, Mahurin worked his way out of the Pentagon to the 51st Fighter Interceptor Wing. Flying the F-86 Sabre in combat, he downed 2 MiG-15s. Mahurin was then given command of the 4th Fighter Interceptor Wing and destroyed another 1.5 MiG-15s in air combat. He was shot down by communist ground fire while strafing ground targets, crash-landed, and was taken prisoner. Spending 16 months as a prisoner and enduring extreme psychological and physical torture, Bud held on and was released 3 months after the war was over. Colonel Mahurin decided to transfer to the reserve and retired from the Air Force in 1978. He is credited with 24 1/4 aircraft destroyed in aerial combat, German, Japanese, and Communist. After leaving active duty, Bud worked in the aerospace industry. He became a vice president with Rockwell International and assisted with the Apollo program. Using his experiences as a POW, he helped establish current Air Force survival courses. Bud Mahurin passed away May 11, 2010. Colonel Raymond F. Hunter grew up in a small mining town in Pennsylvania and enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1954 at the age of 17. He served until 1959 when he was honorably discharged to attend college. He attained a Bachelor of Science from the University of Pittsburgh in April 1962. He also completed Air Force ROTC and was commissioned a second lieutenant. He began pilot training in May 1962. His initial assignment took him to England, where he flew air-to-air refueling tankers and was later assigned as an instructor pilot and flight examiner in C-47s. Following that assignment, he was selected for duty as a Special Air Missions pilot, flying senior U.S. Army officers of the 1st and 3rd Armies. In 1969, he volunteered for Vietnam and was assigned to Air Force Special Operations flying rescue helicopters. After his tour of duty in Vietnam, he was operations officer in the rescue unit at Columbus Air Force Base and achieved instructor pilot flight examiner status in helicopters. In 1973, he returned to fixed-wing aircraft as an IPFE with the Air Training Command at Randolph Air Force Base, Texas. In 1975, then Major Hunter assumed command of the Special Operations Helicopter Rescue Unit, serving the Air Force Flight Test Center at Edwards Air Force Base, California. His next assignment was to Selfridge Air National Guard Base, Michigan in 1977, where he assumed command of the 3,554th United States Air Force Recruiting Squadron. In 1981, he was selected as a Technical Training Center Inspector General and Student Group Commander at Chanute Air Force Base, Illinois. Colonel Hunter was assigned duties in 1984 as Deputy Wing Commander at Lowry Air Force Base, Colorado. In 1985, Colonel Hunter reported as commander of the Air Force ROTC program at the University of Michigan. Colonel Hunter voluntarily retired from the Air Force in 1988 and began a civilian career as program manager for the Great Lakes and Mid-Atlantic Hazardous Substance Research Center. Colonel Hunter retired in 2002 after serving for 12 years at the University of Michigan. Peter J. Vanden Bosch is founding president of Wings of Mercy, an all-volunteer organization of pilots, nurses, and others who provide free air transportation and hope for patients needing medical treatment that have limited financial resources. Based at Michigan's Tulip Capital, Wings of Mercy is the first ongoing, successful effort by a general aviation pilot to respond to and accommodate this need in the state of Michigan. Founded in 1991, this veteran of B-24 missions, post-war radio station owner, and director of several community and internationally acclaimed patriotic choirs, was its first pilot and flew its first mission. There are now 2 Wings of Mercy chapters in Michigan, with at least 67 committed aircraft, more than 200 volunteer pilots flying in excess of 5,000 mission hours. Peter J. Vanden Bosch epitomizes the moniker of Michigan's spirit of flight.
I stood and watched an eagle glide, spread his wings and soared across the sky. So gracefully he flew, rising effortlessly. I wanted to know just how to be free.
My passion for science really started in 7th grade when I was in a science class taught by a man named Mr. Mayhofer. He led me through a program called Science Olympiad, where I managed to develop and expand my love for science that has lasted to this day, and then was even more expanded when I got into high school through my biology teacher, Mr. Chapp, who really further stoked the fire of my passion for science. Daily, my love for science grows just as I see how vast and inexplicable the universe is, and I hope that through science I'm going to be able to someday help learn more and more about it. My ultimate goal with science, through my career or through however I express my love for science throughout my life, is to eventually make the world a better place. I hope that I'm going to be able, through either research or through working at a company or through some way, shape, or form, to be able to make a difference and help someone somewhere. It doesn't have to be a lot of people, but I want to be able to say I've helped someone through my love of science. It could be something as simple as creating something someone needs, or creating a water filter that's light and portable, or something as large as working on a research team that cures cancer. There's so many different ways that people can be helped through science. It's rather extraordinary. Throughout my high school career, I've managed to become very involved with the sciences at my high school. In my sophomore year, halfway through, my biology teacher and I sat down and we created an entirely new position at Hackett called a science lab technician. It was a 0 hour, started at 7 o'clock every morning, and I would come in and set up all the labs for all the science classes, because not only did I want to just do the labs, but I also wanted to be able to know how to set them up and learn about the background aspects of science, just so I could understand it even further. I was diluting the chemicals, I was performing all the work of a lab aide just in the morning when I had extra time. The science lab technician position is going to carry on for as long as there's a person there to fill it. This year I've been working on training my replacement in how to perform all the labs. He's been learning how to dilute chemicals. I've been teaching him how to do it. So not only did I get a chance to learn it myself, I'm now getting a chance to pass it on to someone, which I think is just as important. It's very important to be able to pass on what you learn. It's not just yours. You're only loaning it out. It's not yours.
Well, when I was really young, I started doing like robotics with like Lego sets and stuff like that. So I started with the instructions that it came with, and then I kind of tried to experiment with it and tried to see what kind of different things I could build. And so I thought it was really interesting, the different kinds of movements and stuff that I could do with really basic programming and stuff like that. And then I started working with soldering when I was really young, maybe when I was like 12. Messed around with like electronic instruments and stuff like that. And I found that I could like improve things and make them more accessible with like different ports and things. And so I soldered a lot, I improved a lot. I tried to improve a lot of electronics that I had, like I messed around with the headphones and stuff. So that was really, really fun stuff to work with. Science education is really important because we can see that science makes direct impact on people, and it's one of the most obvious things that makes differences in people's lives. What with technology and like especially medical things and stuff like that, but also like just writing software that makes people's lives easier. It's really exciting that it's always changing, and we're always making people's lives just a little bit easier, like almost every single day. I'm really excited about the fact that like by learning computer science, I have the opportunity to improve other people's lives, and that's just a really, I feel like that's really good that I can make that kind of impact on other people. So for me, science is just always full of excitement, just because there's so much knowledge behind it, and if there's any time that I want to experiment with something different, I can always look it up, and there's always just a massive amount of knowledge, but also with that, also just a huge amount of growth, and always just really incredible problems and equally incredible solutions that we have found for those things. In 10 years, I've thought that maybe I'd like to work for some big company like Google or Oracle or Microsoft, and maybe write software for them. I think that'd be a really, really exciting path to go down.
I love the objectivity of science, how everything comes down to yes or no, and how all questions can be answered not with maybes or well, the really difficult ones are still maybes, but there will eventually be an answer to most questions in science. And I love, as opposed to maybe writing or English or something where there is some subjectivity to whether it's good writing or bad writing, with science, it's like yes or no. I think my passion for physics in particular really kicked off when I took my junior year AP Physics course. And I really enjoyed this course, and I really enjoyed the teacher, Mr. Sinclair. And that caused me to want to learn more about physics and everything involved in that. And I think my passion for computer science also came from a teacher, Mr. Houtra, who is my computer science teacher, and then AP Computer Science and Advanced Computer Science. I was named a Code Warrior by CAMSI for finishing 21 of the challenge problems on the USACA website, USA Computing Olympiad. These challenge problems are usually assigned 3 to 4 each year if you go on the computer science track. So most students by the end of their senior year have about 10 to 12 done, I guess. But I tried to go out of my way to finish more of these and work on them, and I was named a Code Warrior during my junior year for finishing the first 21, and then now I think I've gotten up to 38 out of the challenge set. So I think I'm now on the all-time top list for CAMSI. Yeah. If I could give one piece of advice to young people that might want to pursue a career in STEM careers, I'd just tell them to keep asking questions. Always ask questions. Always ask, like, how do trees grow? Why is the sky blue? Even simple questions like that, because every time they learn a new thing, from answering these questions, it opens up a whole new world of questions and a whole new world of understanding about science. And I think the biggest drive, or I guess driver might be the word, of curiosity is answering questions and realizing how many more there are to ask and such. So I'd just say keep asking questions.
I've had a passion for science for as long as I can remember. My brother and I always played around with all these science kits that we had, some of which we got from the Air Zoo. I think we had a catapult that we played around with. We've both always been interested in that, and I've also always loved nature and how things work. I've been especially interested in just the mechanics behind things, and I think that's where I get my interest in engineering, at least from, but I'm really interested in all different kinds of sciences. So my rooftop agriculture experiment has been going on for 2 years. The first year I was just developing a mathematical model that assessed some of its benefits and drawbacks, and those were economic benefits and drawbacks. I didn't really think about, I did consider societal and environmental implications, but those were overwhelmingly positive. So it's really that economic aspect that I was interested in, because that's why a lot of people don't have rooftop gardens or rooftop agriculture systems on their buildings. So my first year was just looking at those benefits and drawbacks, those different terms. And my second year, actually last summer, I tried to experimentally analyze that, and I set up these modules that served that served as model homes, and each of them had different conditions associated with them, and I measured some of these benefits and drawbacks on these model homes that I had. And I discovered that the payback period for them it could be as little as 4 years, which is wonderful if you're willing to wait that long. So it depends on who you are, but ultimately it can be a sustainable system, both environmentally and economically. I think science is very rewarding, even if we're talking about the failures that you have along the way, because for me at least, part of it is the process of trying to get there, trying to get to a solution, and it really is kind of fun to try and look at, you know, what did I do wrong here, how can I improve? It's fun to constantly try and improve yourself and try and understand, you know, how things actually do work and get closer and closer to that answer, because once you get that answer, or once you find a way to get that answer, it's a wonderful feeling, because you're adding to the literature, you're adding to the general body of knowledge of science, and that can help plenty of people along the way, across cultures, across across seas, it's a global thing, and you're just adding to that body of knowledge. And I think that's a very powerful thing to be able to do.
I first discovered my passion for art when I was in early middle school. It was the first time I picked up my upright bass, the giant violin, if you don't know what that is, in orchestra, and I played with an orchestra there. I also did art classes and a private mentorship that I got. My love for science came a little bit later when I got into about 7th grade. I was in 7th grade class, and the science teacher was showing us all these new topics, and we got to play with science animals. I got to dissect a chicken wing, which was amazing. And I discovered, hey, this is kind of fun. I get to ask as many questions as I'd like, and I get to learn so many things. It made me so curious and excited to learn about math and science. When I was a junior, a teacher explained to me how the brain works. There is a right side of the brain, which I believe is the creative side, which is the one that's off the wall, creating amazing things, that is usually the extremely artistic. And then you have the left side of the brain. This is the processes, the step-by-step, you have to do it perfectly, trying to get everything just down to the wire. Then you have the people that are right in the middle, the people that can bounce back and forth. The great thing about science is that you can combine the two sides. Creativity is what you can kind of see in like engineering. This idea that you have to create new things, you have to build something that hasn't been built before. So you have nothing to start with. You can't rely on just that left side to create something amazing. You have to explore this right side, try to make something that's different. But you can always fall back on that left side of the brain to follow basic processes, try to set yourself up in a way that you can build things. If someone came up to me and asked me, how am I doing these amazing things, creating something like this, I'd tell them, try following yourself. Try finding what you do best. If you love something, truly pursue it. You will do amazing things if you continue doing what you love. And you never know what you'll get out of that. It'll just be so rewarding.
All right, so one of the projects that we did in my STEM class was the Rube Goldberg Energy Transfer Project. Students were broken into teams. They had to create an energy transfer that included all of the simple machines, and they could use any supplies that they wanted to. So this group used an inclined plane, a pulley system, which would knock the marble down here, and then it would set off the mouse trap, and then this had a lever, has a lever here, and then they had a marble resting, and then it would send it to the next team. And then at the end of the project, we lined them up and we launched them together. So it was pretty cool. One of the key ideas that the kids are learning in the STEM class this year is innovation. This is the second year that they've done this project. So at the start of the project, they were able to take a look at last year's designs, explore, tinker with them, and come up with some solutions to make their ideas better. So the idea of innovation is to make something already good even better, and by allowing the students next year to look at 2 years worth of designs, I'm super excited to see what they'll come up with next year. Some of the other skills that the STEM class allows the students to do is to problem solve. One of the hardest things for the students to do is to fail, and in order to be successful in any engineering or building project is they have to learn from failing. So they have to build something and it usually doesn't work, so then they have to figure out, well, why didn't it work? And for some kids it can be frustrating, but problem solving has been a very critical piece in the STEM class. Something else that they learn in the STEM class is teamwork and collaboration, because in this project there's groups of 3 or 4 students, and they all have different ideas. And so not only do they have to work with the team to build this, they have to communicate and work with the team that receives the marble and then transfers the marble over here. So it requires them to have a lot of conversation with a lot of people to make a final product. Personally, for me, teaching a STEM class is probably the best experience I've ever had in my whole teaching career of 15 years. There are kids in my classroom that did not know what a saw was. They did not know the difference between a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver, or as they say in China, a plus or a minus. We've learned that. There are kids that have never used a hammer and nail. So when I am able to teach kids simple things like that, that's pretty cool. But when I have specifically a young girl who says, I never thought I would like engineering, or I never thought I would like this kind of class, to me, that's probably the most inspiring thing, because we need more females in the engineering field. And I think this class allows girls especially to see that it's okay to build, and it's fun, and you can make it pretty, and you can make it messy, and a lot of times the girls are better builders than the boys.
The quick, easy answer is that's where the jobs are. You don't have to look very far to see, these surveys that like U.S. News and World Report or, something like that would do on which bachelor's degrees are, for kids or young people coming out of college, which ones are paying what. And so it just seems like, if you just looked at the top 10, most of those have some kind of math, science, technology component to them. And I think, like I said, if you're willing to study subjects that are difficult and yet valuable like that makes you valuable. And whatever a student's passion is, I try to get them interested in computer science and in that kind of thinking, that logical thinking that goes with that. Not because I want them all to become computer science majors, but because I want them to have this skill set that is so valuable no matter what industry they're getting into, no matter what occupation or profession they might be pursuing. So whether they're planning on being pre-med or pre-law or engineers or computer scientists, whatever that field they're going into, if I can get them to to stay with me long enough, whether that be 1 year, 2 years, or 3, to learn how to think and how to critically analyze something. It's a valuable skill to have, no matter what they're going into. The students. The best part of my job is getting to work with the students that I have. I really do see them as, especially the longer they are with me and if they're taking my electives, they're my kids. So if there's something like an Air Zoo student award available, I'm jumping on the emails and saying, hey, you need to apply for this. I'll write your recommendation for you. Go get this. This is for you. And just like I would if it was my own kid.
I had a student my second year teaching, and every single day he was a challenge. He wanted to be kicked out all the time. And I finally just said, you're not leaving my classroom. This is what we're going to do. And we'd get through the first 10 minutes, and the next day we'd get through 20 minutes together, and the next day we'd get through 30 minutes together. And he was probably the brightest kid I've ever met. He just was not engaged in what he was doing, and he wasn't motivated. And so to kind of see that transition and watch him grow as a student and he did end up going to summer school, and he said to one of the summer school teachers, "Man, Mrs. Meyer was really, you know, she was right. This isn't so bad. I wish I would have done it right the first time." And so to see that transition as a student, and that makes a difference. That's why I do my job. STEM education is really important because it's growing in the nation and it's growing around the world. If we want to prepare our students for a global economy, we need to prepare them to be scientists, mathematicians, you know, innovate and be prepared for working in the global economy. I love science. I mean, let's face it, science is cool. I mean, it answers all of the questions about why things are the way they are and how we can make things better and how we can change the world. And so I think that is really the motivating piece behind my passion for science. And I want to share that with kids. I want to share my passion with them, and so it gets them excited about it as well. One thing that I found that's really important to my students is they want to find out how it's applicable to their real life. And so showing them career branches, showing them how they can use this in the real world, and applying it to things that they do every single day is really important to my students, and that has been really motivating for them. Having them work on problems that are challenging and rigorous and having them apply it to things that they use every single day has been really engaging for my students. Some examples of that, we build, I give them the problem of coming up with a piece of furniture that they're not satisfied with, or inventing a new piece of furniture to solve a problem that they have. And then they go through the design process and they sketch and make a decision matrix, and then they come up with a CAD file on the computer of their piece of furniture.
To give kids an appreciation for the ability they have to solve problems, and also to give them these tools that they need to become robust problem solvers and to help enhance their creativity and problem solving beyond where they think they might be. I think a lot of kids have the idea that engineering and science is not an area where you can be creative and like it is in the arts, say. And I would love to see more kids be able to take their artistic talents and apply it to science and engineering and become much better problem solvers in their own right, and more creative problem solvers. More and more of the problems that we're going to have to solve as a society require high levels of involvement in high technology, and also require people to be systematic problem solvers. The areas of STEM education particularly prepare students and people with the skills they need for systematic problem solving, and give them the background they need to be flexible and creative in how they solve the more complex problems. I tell my kids in the classroom all the time, all the simple problems have been solved. The really tough stuff is what's coming. And you've got to be prepared to think on your feet and move. And the more you know about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the more flexible you're going to be and the more prepared you're going to be at solving problems in the future. In the very broadest sense, I'd like the students to get an appreciation for the field of engineering as a whole, because not all of them are going to become engineers, even though they might take my engineering classes. But it's still important for them to understand what engineers do, and how engineers go about solving problems, and how engineers go about changing our society. Because they may have to relate to engineers, they may be in a supervisory position over engineers, and they may be in a scientific position where they have to work with engineers to see some idea that they've come up with become a reality, and that's what engineers do. And so the more they understand about engineering and have an appreciation for the artistic craft that is being an engineer, the better they'll be off, whether they're an engineer or not, at being able to relate to people who do that kind of work.